What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and this is another episode of the Facts Project. Today, special guest, writer, artist, self-publisher of Ronin Digital Express. We have Renton Hawkey here. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Grandmaster, good to be here.
Yeah, man. So, to get started, okay, out of a whim, basically, we got to talking to each other sonically through Twitter, and generally like how a lot of indie comic book publishers do, in order for the midst of them getting seen, you reached out to me and basically told me about your story, and I got a chance to read through it on Substack. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, I am really impressed. I'm loving your work so far.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
So for anybody that has never gotten to know your background, you're from Madison, Wisconsin. You're starting comics. How did this happen?
So I initially saw myself as being like a comics writer. And I like told versions of the story before. I'll try to give you like the canned version. I saw myself initially as a writer. I had written like a handful of, pitch projects or whatever. And I was trying to find like an artist to collaborate with. The thing that I was a little weird about was that I kind of imagined myself as being a writer, but I could draw, like I would draw characters and stuff. So I thought I would like design like the characters and also just do the writing and then hand the development material off to some artist and be like, hey, here you go. They have to look like this. You fill in the rest. I would search for collaborators, and I joined up with a couple artists here and there to do some of these projects, and just didn't pan out for various reasons. And one day, it might have been my wife was just like, well, you draw, why not just draw the whole thing? Like, what are you half-assing it for? Just like drawing characters and stuff. Why not, do the whole thing? And so I was like, all right, I'll do the whole thing. And, not realizing how much I still had to learn. It took me a few years to kind of get caught up and kind of, learn the basics, going to YouTube University and watching a ton of videos and reading a ton of books. It really kind of just came out of, I always wanted to write comics. And then at some point it just kind of clicked like, well, hey, why not just do it all yourself? That way there's no hurt feelings if a project doesn't fall through. And you also kind of have the final, director's cut of everything. It just gets to be whatever your vision for it is. And it's just downhill ever since, I guess.
Nice, man. And see, that's kind of wonderful that you actually got a kindred spirit in your wife that basically was like, you know what, suck it up, start drawing.
Yeah.
You're putting this out yourself.
Yeah, she like any good woman keeps you honest for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So well, in the midst of like putting this together, like when we're talking about somebody who is not only a writer but also an artist, like is it conflicting that you when you write a story and all of a sudden the artist is like puts the panels to page and it's not generally what you visioned in your head? The visuals aren't exactly how you put them, or better yet, the details in what you put down are just not adding up to how you saw it in your head. So the imagination is just disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, that's that is very stereotypical, I would say. Probably most artists, but definitely mine. That was kind of, I did do some writing and managed to get like a couple of short comics off the ground with artists. And like some of the novelty around collaboration was, you do kind of have like a fixed idea in your head as a writer of like how you want it to look, but you might be wrong. You might be thinking of it like a movie, or it might in like cinematography kind of ways, and that's not necessarily always going to work for a comic. So some of the novelty of collaborating was just seeing what artists would do with your writing, and you'd get stuff back and be like, oh, like that looks a lot better than I thought it would, and you pleasantly surprised through that process. Whereas, when it's you, you do have this sort of platonic ideal in your head, and it doesn't always match on paper. And I would say, at least for me, I'm still fairly green. I'm still starting out in a lot of ways. There are those moments where you surprise yourself and you're like, oh, that actually looks better than I thought. But that's like 10% of the time. And most of the time it's just, I just got to move on, and then you hope that when you look back on it, you're like, that turned out okay.
Yeah, because I've heard stories of where um, some writers have gotten their artwork back from generally their artists in general, and they've had to start rewriting their story.
Yeah.
Does,
Yeah.
does that happen often?
That I can't speak to that. I do think that kind of I can say at least one of the benefits of doing it kind of just on your own is that you can be a very lazy writer. Like, if I sent you like a script, it's not, it's the opposite of like Alan Moore, where Alan Moore has this just deep prose in all of his scripts or whatever, or
Right.
Grant Morrison or someone like that. For me, it's just, panel one, shocked look, and then like a line of dialogue or something like that. And then I'm just like, I'll figure it out at the artistic stage, because I have to put together the composition at that point in the process. So I don't really do too much beyond like stage directions and the writing side. But then, what will happen sometimes is you'll get to the page and you'll be like, I initially kind of figured maybe there'd be 6 panels here, but that's too busy. I'm going to have to figure out a way to do some in-flight repairs and get it down to 4 panels or something like that. Or, I think I've got a few too many pages here. I got to try to fold a few into, get a shorter overall page count. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Like it's good because you just sort of have, arbitrary authoritarian edit all the way through where you can
Right.
just make whatever decision you want and there's nobody grumbling about it except yourself. But I think it would just kind of, it must just boil down to like a personality type thing. If you like a little bit of organized chaos, then maybe doing it all yourself is the way to go. And then, yeah, if you're someone who's maybe a little bit more better at like maybe the project management side of it,
Yeah,
running a team might be a little bit better for you.
definitely. So let's talk Ronin Digital Express. So futuristic spaghetti western. Am I now from just basically me seeing the descriptions of, I'm sensing a lot of Kurosawa. I'm
Oh yeah.
sensing a ton of Clint Eastwood. I'm seeing A Man with No Name.
Yeah.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Mhm.
Like what made you go there? Was it like, did you binge one night and it was like, yeah, that's it?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it in terms of the description. I think that there are some influences I'm bringing to it from, that have been with me for a long time. Things like 90s anime,
Mm, right.
Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, stuff from Atomo.
Fist of the North Star.
Yeah. There's some of that DNA in there for sure. So that's stuff that's maybe always appealed to me. Samurai Champloo, some of the stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I've always liked that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I was kind of a latecomer, to like spaghetti westerns and Kurosawa and stuff. It was really, sort of a COVID thing, honestly, where everyone has a COVID hobby. I guess mine was classic film.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just you're right. I just kind of got into it and I was like, this clicks. Like I'm really, and then along the way, you read a little bit of stuff online here and there about the movies you're watching and finding that there's really just a lot of overlap between sort of like the Chanbara samurai movie and like the Western. They have a
Mhm.
lot of the same tropes. I mean, you mentioned Kurosawa, Yojimbo, and A Fistful of Dollars. You probably know it's a
Yeah.
direct remake, right? I mean, it's like
Oh,
almost
it is.
word for
Yep.
word. Yeah. So, and I'm not a licensed one either. I think there was a lawsuit there. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're just so complementary that just kind of all those things swimming together. I was like, I just want to do something with this, and I kind of felt that maybe the way to kind of have your cake and eat it too would be to put it way off in the future, and just kind of have the setting be a little bit of an unspecified, cataclysm, apocalypse thing happen at some point. We're not really going to worry too much about that. The story's not about, how did this happen? It's just all
Mhm.
background noise. I wouldn't call it post-apocalyptic. It's more like mid-reconstruction. Society is starting to kind of come back, but
Right.
they don't have an internet. They don't have all this communication. So you get to have like hovercraft, but also the Western style of I got to get, from town to town by foot, and there's no email and there's no text messages and things like that. So you can kind of get the technology that makes it interesting and a little futuristic, but leave behind anything that might kind of get in the way of the Western thing. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, it just all kind of came together like that.
Yeah, I even saw like the little bit of excerpts of digital currency that he was going through, like as far as like
Yeah.
the means and the ways, like it was almost like a version of Bitcoin as to how he was profiting his
Yeah. Yeah.
way through each scene. And the thing is, it seems like every segment of it, every single episode that you're post the issue that you're posting
Mhm.
is a totally different story than the last one.
Yeah.
It's literally like he's a wanderer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you caught me, guilty on all counts. And yeah, it's one of the things when I was listening to some episodes of yours, I was like, man, he asks really good questions. So I know no matter what, we're going to have a good conversation. So that's proving true. But yeah, no, you caught me on both counts. The digital currency thing was sort of like a thing that, like a, I'm not like a crypto bro
Okay.
myself, but it just seems interesting, like an interesting way to do,
Mm-hmm.
the money thing and kind of wink at the real world a little bit. And there are a few kind of throwaway lines. I don't know if they've been in episodes so far, but they're probably in some forthcoming chapters, where there's a bit of a suggestion that there is like a fiat, there's like a dollar, like a paper currency that is not quite as valuable as the digital currency is. So yeah, there's a little bit of winking at the real world. This was, I mean, I put all this into play way before the NFT stuff, and now that's a whole
Yeah.
controversial. I don't want to lick that frozen pole. That's a whole controversial thing in the community. So yeah, there's no. Just seemed like it was a cool piece of technology. There's no, it's not some sort of hidden endorsement or anything. But yeah, I thought it would add some interesting flavor to the world. And then yeah, you're right. I mean, the archetype of sort of the man with no name, kung fu, that sort of thing, just the wandering loner going from town to town, getting into these serialized pulpy adventures. I really dig stories like that. And, I did Ronin Digital Express as just kind of an exercise to do a comic.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted a concept that was like that. It, relied a lot on kind of tropes and archetypes that we kind of have built in. So, pop culture hands you a pretty big cheat sheet there. People just recognize this stuff. You don't have to do a whole lot of like backfilling on exposition. People just know it when they see it, and then, yeah, making it serialized and not really having kind of a minimalistic overall plot and just being more episodic and more pulpy with it leaves it open-ended. So if I get to the end of my current run with it and people seem to really dig it, I can do more because it's just kind of easy to do more.
Yeah. Now you've had the opportunity, of course, when of course the newest medium on the block, when Substack came online, uh they did something very unique. They grabbed a bunch of comic writers, authors, artists, and pretty much just provided them with a medium in which they could create on their own. And it brought a lot of mainstream authors and artists to basically get the opportunity to do their own independent comics that they've always wanted to do themselves. For the indie community, it pretty much provided another landscape medium for them to tool their craft.
Mm.
And what are the advantages that you see now with Substack coming online?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The things that I think appeal to me the most, I know there's some people probably know I used to be on Webtoon with Ronin Digital Express. I
Yeah.
did a handful of episodes on Webtoon, and moved from there to Ronin Digital, or I'm sorry, moved from there to Substack. Primarily for just sort of workflow reasons.
Mhm.
Webtoon, has very strict content moderation. You also have to kind of like reformat stuff into a very specific format. So it just kind of slowed down my workflow a little bit. And I always felt like, well, if I ever wanted to take, Ronin or something else into a bit more of like a like a grindhouse direction or something like that.
Mm.
There's just no way you could do that on Webtoon because they're very, I would say fairly conservative with content moderation. So yeah, I was kind of looking to break up. Nothing against Webtoon, of course. There's a huge community there, and if you have the right project, you can do really well there. So yeah, absolutely no hard feelings or anything. But yeah, I was looking around, thinking about Tapas and other places like that, and Substack just ended up kind of being the new kid on the block. And the reasons for the move, I think, ultimately were, one, really, really easy to use. It just like I set it up in just like an hour or two.
Mm.
And like, you log into your back end, scheduling is really easy. You can schedule months in advance. The analytics are pretty easy to read. They're right there in your face. They kind of tell you, here are the high points, here are the low points, all that stuff. And, nothing I'm describing right now is anything you couldn't get from like setting up WordPress in a particular way, but
True.
they set it up for you. So why set up WordPress? So that's probably reason one, is just how easy it is to use. Reason two being, the content moderation stuff just seems to be a lot more lax. Reason three, I would say, the investment in comics is just kind of an interesting thing. To your
Right.
point, not only are they courting pretty big name creators, they're also talking about, I can't remember what company it was, but they did acquire a company that would kind of create sort of as far as I understand, it would be like a web comic reading experience, kind of an app, right?
I heard
So
about that. Yes.
yeah. So right now it's just sort of a straight blog post kind of a reading style where, you just kind of get like the big JPEG page or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
like a blog post would be. But, someday once they figure out the technology that they bought and they can implement that, it could be more of a, like a Marvel Unlimited reading experience, kind of thing. So yeah, they're investing in the tech, they're investing in the talent. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's a company saying, we really want to pursue this market, and who
Yeah.
doesn't want to be where they're wanted, you know?
Yeah, who doesn't want to be in the comics business? Especially, it seems like more than most digitally seems to now be the way to go. I mean, I'm not gonna front. I love my print, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that have skirted away. DC are doing exclusive comics for webtoons. There's
Mhm.
Marvel comics that you can only get on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the big one, there's Comixology. So
Mhm.
Substack just joining this group of a means that people can access digital comics is, I guess, right for the course, because everybody seems to be just jumping in this direction anyway.
Yeah. 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 I think that's intuitive. I mean, it's kind of like, I remember when mobile gaming was kind of a new thing. And, I was even someone who was just so broken by the console, that I couldn't imagine, like, why would I play a game on my phone? Like, where's the controller? It
Hmm.
sounded like a, you know, 60-year-old man or something while I was in my 20s. Like, I'm never going to do that. And then
Yeah.
now, mobile gaming is, now that you've seen it done well, it's like, no shit. Like of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. So all it's going to take is going to be, some really good innovative comics apps kind of doing the same thing. And yeah, I think it could really create a much wider market than print, which I'm with you. I mean, you probably see it back
I see
there. I
it.
mean,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a little bit far away, but I've got the long boxes and I've got the giant omnibuses of, Age of Apocalypse and Spider-Man Clone Saga. I love print too,
Mhm.
but yeah, you got to change with the times, I guess.
Mhm. Do you find digital comics to be a lot faster production because of the fact that with Substack you're able to put it out like at your whim. You schedule it the way that you want to schedule it. So it's like I have no niches to worry about, an outside source, a printer,
Sure.
and letterer. Well, you're the letterer. So the thing is, like, you got to
Yeah.
wait you're waiting for your printing and your screening to come out. And there's one more hurdle or barrier just basically tying you up from putting it out. Is that the reason that you are exclusively digital?
Well, I think I'm only exclusively digital because I'm still starting out.
Okay.
So really what my intention is I want to build a body of work. So
Mhm.
I would like to, when conventions come back and when it's safe to go to conventions, I would like to be, maybe a few years from now, shaking hands with editors and introducing myself to people. And I would like to have something out there to point
Mhm.
to that I did, or a couple things ideally would be the best.
Mhm.
Not that anybody would have, oh, like, oh, sure, I've heard of you. Like, that's not necessarily what I'm going for, but just to be able to say, here's 3 projects I self-published, they're complete, like they're done. Uh, and this is just they're good. It's a good appetizer sampler of what I can do.
Mhm.
That's something that I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but one of those insider tips that you get about talking to editors, portfolio of like pictures of Spider-Man is just not really the way to go anymore. Like what they want to see is they want to see, you ran a successful Kickstarter campaign or 5, or, you have a web comic that you've been self-publishing. They want to see that like, A, you can do it, but
Mhm.
also you can like finish something,
Right.
So like if you bring them like a pitch project that's got like 5 finished pages and they're like the best pages they've ever seen, but you don't have anything that you've actually like finished, it's like it can be kind of a red flag,
Yeah.
um,
It's true.
so that's mostly the goal with digital for me. I would love to do print stuff, whether on my own through Kickstarter or, if I worked with like an indie publisher or something like that. That's totally in the cards. I'm definitely interested in that, but for right now, just taking my time, building a body of work, doing the reps, or whatever cliche you want to use there.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm up to right now.
Dope. Now,
Yeah.
even with a lot of indie publishers and a lot of indie comic creators, they have the option, of course, when they're putting a lot of their projects out, they're going to Comic Cons, they're in
Mhm.
Artist Alley, selling their stuff like hotcakes. It's their way of basically bolstering up their budget for the year and kind of just having profit share of exactly what they're creating. But who's to say a person like yourself that right now is exclusive digitally, even though you might want to move to print in the future? Well, I've talked about this with friends of mine. As
Mhm.
far as like, who's to say that we don't go there one day and there's a person literally has their own booth,
Mhm.
does not have any comics at their booth, but he's got QR codes literally
Yeah.
built in
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
phone. And
Right.
all he's just telling you to do is, hey, come on over and just tap
Right.
this in real quick. You'll be fine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
all of a sudden he has access to your comics. He can subscribe if he'd like to. He can queue in and basically add his dollar amount if he wants to continue the series, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I've been to Comic Cons where literally I've talked to friends. I'm like, one of these days there's gonna be a booth here with nothing in it and just a dude
Mhm.
with a QR code that is just
Mhm.
getting dollars on end because he's getting subscriptions. Everybody's got a phone. It's not like
Mhm.
he has the digital currency. You have a comic based on digital currency, even though it's not really
Yeah.
that
A fake
thing.
digital
It's like
currency. Yeah.
right, bop, 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 bop. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, out of
Yeah.
nowhere, like you're getting sales in that way.
Yeah.
It's like those guys show up there with their little squares. They're queuing them up to like the bottom of their iPods, and they're doing
Mhm.
sales off the whim, literally off their phone anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who's to say there will? I'm guarantee you there will be a person one day
Yeah.
that's going to happen.
No, I'm lighting up like a Christmas tree over here because I think you're bang on. Like that's 100%. I mean, like you might have like sort of like a hybrid booth where like maybe they have some printed books or some prints or something like that, and I'm sure they'll have like their banners and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, why not just instead of like a rack of business cards, why not just have like a big 8 by 11 sheet of paper with a QR code that goes straight to your link tree right there.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah,
I'm looking at all the current creators that are basically on Substack, and the next conventions that they show up to, they're going to want to plug their new work.
yeah,
Those comics aren't in print, they're digital, so there has to be
right.
a means and a ways for the people to access them. So if I'm
Yep,
over there speaking to Tom King or Scott Snyder, who are also on Substack,
Yeah.
They have to figure out a way in order for me to access that comic. It was like, okay, look, I got my Batman stuff that I wrote over here. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm really passionate about this project. And here's my QR code. Boom.
Yep. Yep.
Done.
Yep. QR code. Here's my comic. Here's my Cash App. Done.
Emails on there.
Yeah.
Done.
Yep. Well, on Substack, you can monetize too. That was another thing that I forgot to mention, was that if that was something that I wanted to do over time, you know, there's that capability is there too. But yeah, another thing that I thought, you know, not applicable to me and sort of my tracking numbers right now, but you know, anybody who was running, you know, a web comic, something that could be a cool idea too, would be, you have this long running web comic, and then you just do kind of like the anime, like OVA model, where they'll have like the 22 episode season, and then they'll have like the, you know, 2 hour movie or whatever. You could do like your long running web comic and then have like a special 50-page graphic novel Kickstarter that you run. That's just kind of like its own thing. So, you know, for me, that's red meat for me, right? Like if I'm a fan,
Yeah.
and I'm following a web comic I really love, and there's this like, you know, separate story I can only get if I support the Kickstarter, and maybe, you know, I get a bunch of bonuses like pins and stickers, maybe the production values are a little bit better, whatever it is. Of course I'm going to buy into that, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creators out there that have Patreons. There's a lot of podcasters that have exclusive shows that they have for exclusive subscribers.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like it's a win-win either way. It depends on how much variety that creator has in order to bolster that, you know. So like it's gung-ho from there. But we are dealing with the internet, so it's like so when you hear about like the recently in the news with the Comixology update for digital comic book readers to not have the access to panels that they would love, that they were totally used to, and then all of a sudden there was this big update, and I seen people like Patton Oswald, who from Parks and Recreation, going like berserk. They're like, what the fuck did you guys do? Comixology,
right.
this is nuts. You know, so like I saw that, and literally I think Comixology reached out to him and was like, look, it's not a big deal. It's only the first version of this update.
We can't have you saying shit like this on Twitter, Patton.
Yeah, it's like, so originally I think it was how easily it was accessible on your iPhone and iPad that you could tap on a certain panel and it would blow up to the length and size of whatever phone or iPad you were using. Now you're looking at the entire page as it would be shown on a comic book, but yet I can't like physically throw it at my eyes. So like you had people, for one, they were losing comics because they had a boatload of their library on Comixology, and then all of a sudden they were like, some of the comics that got purchased disappeared.
They're getting wiped out. Yeah. Right.
And then there was the reading perspective of it. So like, is it a double-edged sword with the internet? Because of course your phone has to have updates, your iPad has to have the updates. Even if you have an Android, your Android has updates. So is it almost scarcity out there for people when they want to look at digital comics that possibly the internet might rule against you, and then boom, that's it?
Yeah, 100% it is. I think that, you know, for me, a lot of creatives really get stuck in this sort of options paralysis of like, what's the right thing to do? As though, you know, if they just think about it a little bit more, Jesus will part the skies and give them the answer. Like that's not the way it works. Everything is going to be trade-offs, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I work 100% digitally. The benefits of that are I work faster, which I have to because I do everything myself. And I can publish online, which means, you know, to your point, I can get the content to whoever wants to read it sooner and 100% on my terms. So those are benefits. Drawbacks, you're right. You know, if a company doesn't update, wipes you out, you know, I don't know, Russian EMP, whatever thing.
I would hope not.
Yeah, I hope not, but you know, it's topical. You know, whatever can wipe out everything you've ever done, and there's just no evidence that you ever did anything,
Yeah, it's almost
because
like
it's all,
you don't exist. Your artwork or your work does not exist.
yeah, because it's all pixels, right? So that's a bummer. And then like another drawback is I don't have like, if I became a big shot and I, was drawing Spider-Man or something like that, which it's not really in the cards for me, but if I did,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have original art to sell, and that's like a big revenue stream for a lot of creators. So yeah, there are definitely downsides, but then the upside is I have a lot of friends who pour thousands of dollars into printing books that maybe just never materialize,
True.
or
You're
they can't sell.
sitting with a garage full of just print books
Yeah.
in crate.
So yeah, but it's in print, it exists, it's real, but yeah, that's the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
So it's all I just see it all as trade-offs. So I would like to hedge my bets in any way I can, work digitally for now because it's just the easiest and most efficient thing I can do. But yeah, I mean, in the future, I mean, I did some drawing for a friend's project. I did like a short
Okay.
for
Like
him. Yeah, so
anthology.
he had like a mini series through Comics Experience and I think IDW.
Oh,
Or
nice.
no, it was Source Point Press was the publisher.
Mm,
But it was like a 3-issue miniseries. I should plug him. Milton Lawson
okay.
at Citizen Milton on Twitter. He's a writer.
Okay.
So he wrote a 3-issue miniseries that's like a noir, a really interesting kind of like quirky noir space detective kind of thing. Almost like Futurama levels of weird, but played more straight than that.
Blade Runner-ish.
Not quite Blade Runner-ish. I think his pitch for it was like Christopher Hitchens solving crimes in space or
Mm,
something like this. So it's just really like, arrogant but eloquent cigarette smoking, whiskey swilling guy who's just getting in all this trouble solving murder cases, right?
nice.
So a lot of fun. There's a 3-issue miniseries. He needed a little bit more back matter for the trade.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote and drew like a 5 or 6 page story. So I do have like physical, printed material that I've worked on. And yeah, certainly there's more of that I would like to do at some point. But yeah, for right now, yeah, it's primarily a digital play, I guess. I feel like I got off my train tracks a little bit there. I apologize, but
You totally good, man. There's nothing wrong with plugging it. Now, what is the need do you feel as though that there's a need for comic publishers to have an accompanying newsletter? You have it with Rent Space.
yeah. It's really a thing I have because I was told I need to have it. So it's just kind of one of those marketing best practices, I guess. It's been useful for me just because it's been nice to have a place to put things that I'm doing that aren't specifically Ronin Digital Express, and nice to have like a sort of a blog type thing where I can do some like behind the scenes stuff. But I don't know. I try to. It's a good place to have. I'll quit filibustering. Here's kind of the reason why a newsletter makes sense if you can get a lot of people to subscribe. If you post something on Instagram or you post something on Twitter, right? Like 5% of your followers are going to see one post in a given time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you have like your own subscriber list, then the number of people who can see that is I mean, not usually all of your subscribers will read everything, but like a good click-through rate might be like 40% or something like that. So it's closer to like half your audience.
Right.
So it's just a much more motivated audience to actually read what you have posting, and it also goes to their inbox. So there's no chance they're going to miss it in the algorithm somewhere,
Right.
So just a bit more of a captive audience. Also, if they're going to go the extra mile and like give you their email address, they're probably also more likely to buy something if you ask them to buy something. So that's kind of a perk. So yeah, the whole build your list is definitely advice you run into quite a bit. And for me, I just, I really want to try to give anybody who's giving me any of their time, you know, something of value, something that will entertain them. With Rent Space, I've tried to make it, a fairly short newsletter. I try to, I don't take myself too seriously. The last one I did was something about how it's really, really hard in Ronin Digital Express to draw him holding the sword in a way that doesn't suggest it's his dick. Like it's a, he's like, if he's holding it at his side and it's just kind of, he's just kind of like in a profile like this and is pointing out that way. It looks like it looks like his cock, right? So yeah, I had an issue of my newsletter that was dedicated to all the panels I had to throw in the garbage because I accidentally gave him, a katana dick. So yeah, I try to have fun like that. I also do like, not safe for work, 18 plus kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Spidey and, chasing a naked Mary Jane around the apartment, Christmas card kind of shit. So I'll put that in there. So yeah, it's just kind of a nice venue to kind of flex another side of my personality as a creator. The thing that I always just wanted to avoid was so many artists and comics creator newsletters are just really, really long and there's just a lot going on. And I'm like, nah, I just want to keep it short and sweet, one main thing, hopefully entertain you a little bit, and then you're out of here.
Got you. Now, I think I remember I was speaking with a friend of mine. This was back when I was on Instagram, and I asked him, what are the two things that within nerd culture and comics in general that are more than likely push and elevate everybody to the next level? He was like, well, one is probably going to be fan fiction. Everybody coming up with their own stories based on their favorite characters. And then number two was NSFW work on a lot of your favorite characters and storylines that are brought out there, because the avenue in which a lot of creators generally want to go, but are more so like timid in order to do so, is the NSFW work. And the thing is, if they want to showcase their characters in a different light, and it's not really, I guess, not that it's like frowned upon in the indie community, you can go to Kickstarter, you can find comics that are just like that. But if it's another avenue for a current storyline that they're propelling, be like, hey, look, I got it here, and here's my 18 plus.
Yeah. Well, and so I mean, some of that stuff is so. Anybody who's kind of on the fence and is like, I don't know if there's an audience for what I'm doing. One of my favorite anecdotes is, I can't remember who exactly it is, but there is a guy out there. I saw his work. There's a guy out there who makes some kind of a webcomic that is just, it's like gay dudes wearing diapers. And that's,
it may seem obscene, but you know what? It's comics. Get as weird as possible.
He makes like $10,000 a month on this.
I'm
like
sure.
On his Patreon.
I'm sure.
I'm like, seriously, there is an audience for everything. Like, you just need to try to. It might take you longer to find it than it took that guy, or who knows? Maybe that guy worked for 10 years to find his audience. We have no idea, right? But that should remove any fear that you might have that people aren't going to like what I'm putting out there. Like, you'll find someone.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the stuff that DC's doing, like in the next I think next 4 months. So they're making a version of the Justice League called the Jurassic League, where they turn basically the entire Justice League into dinosaurs. And I'm like, go ahead, get weird. And then they also have DC Mecha, where basically every DC character has their own mech robot. And I'm like, okay, I'm with it.
Yeah.
So like,
when people are complaining about like, YA stuff getting into comics, I'm like, so what? Like, so what? Like, do anything and everything that you can come up with. Yeah.
Right.
So
it's wild. Yeah. But
I'm an artistic libertine. I'm just like, open the floodgates, let it go. Just everybody do whatever they want to do. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's how I feel about everything. Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly the attitude that you want to have when you're creating comics. You don't want to feel like you're in a cage.
Yeah. Well, and some of those, to go back to the NSFW thing, some of those, especially the people who do the painting.
Yeah.
There's Alexis Flower. I think it's Flower, not Flowers. Alexis Flower is probably one of the. If you just go to Twitter at Alexis Flower, make sure your wife is not hanging around, or you're not doing it at work. But I mean, some of these people who paint this stuff are the best painters,
Best artists out there
that you've ever seen. Like the amount of detail, you're like, it blows my mind. They're and like the tragedy. I'm sure they make, they found their audience and they probably make a decent living via Patreon or whatever. But it's just, if you're a comic book reader that just goes to like a comic shop or something like that, there's this whole world of like just elite level talent that you probably don't know anything about, and that's so.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great because it's out there to be discovered, but it's sad that like there isn't more mainstream recognition for that talent.
Absolutely, because it's weird in this day and age. Of course, with social media, you have all these comic loyalists, and they don't even literally when I think that Jurassic League came out, they were like, "Oh my God, DC's fumbling the bag again." I'm like, if only you would open your brain, and realize how talented these people are. The fact that they created Batman into a T-Rex, it's just running around the entire time, and how awesome that looks.
Yeah.
You might want to just pay attention to it, at least for once.
Well, and a lot of these dummies who are going to get upset over like, the next non-binary, somebody who's writing X-Force or something like that. It's like, you're the same guy who said Heath Ledger could never be Joker.
Right.
And look how that turned out. That went great. So just give it a chance. Give it a chance.
I saw nobody complaining when Jack Nicholson became Joker and said, "God, Cesar Romero is turning in his grave." Nobody said that.
Right. Yeah. So
what is next for you? What's coming up in 2020 aside from Ronin Digital Express?
Yeah. So I've got some Ronin. I've got enough Ronin Digital Express through I think like mid-summer or early summer. So that'll keep going for a little while. I'm kind of putting things in place to start on kind of my next thing. I'm going to do another sort of a self-contained Substack thing. I don't think I'm ready to talk too much about it yet, but it'll be kind of in the same playground as the sort of samurai Kurosawa spaghetti western kind of stuff. So yeah, more of that kind of stuff. So I would just say I'm going to be busy through the rest of the year for sure. I mean, Ronin Digital Express so far has actually opened up some pretty cool opportunities. So it'll be there'll be stuff coming out through the end of the year, and then I've got some stuff lined up next as well. So I can't be. I think I can be too much more specific than that, except to just say, it's not over after this kind of runs its course. And then, with Ronin Digital Express too, I think that once the current iteration of it runs through, I'm going to catch my breath a little bit, give it a break, see if it kind of has a loyal audience at that point, and make some decisions about whether or not to do more of that. So, but yeah, I would say for the indefinite future, I'm going to be doing my own projects. I'll mostly be self-publishing them through Substack. So yeah, if anybody wants to keep an eye on that, I'm fairly easy to find. At Renton Hawkey on Twitter or Instagram are kind of the main two places. Subscribe to the newsletter if you want kind of the behind the scenes stuff, teasers about upcoming things. I occasionally will do like random one-off. I can talk about this. So a friend of mine and I, we submitted a short comic to a horror anthology.
Nice.
It's not, well, they turned us down.
Damn.
But well, hang on. So it was, so we submitted, but we kind of submitted we submitted the most offensive thing we could imagine to see if they would take it. So the story is called Full Moon Glory Hole, and I'll just kind of, you can probably figure out why they turned it down. But I told him, I was like, whether they take it or not, we'll do it. And I'll just put it out through the newsletter. So it's like a 5-page, it'll be funny, but it'll be rough.
Got you.
So, you know, I do stuff like that in the newsletter, is I'll just, you know, little short comics here and there. If I have like a wild idea for a 5-page short that doesn't go anywhere else, you know, I'll do it as just sort of an exclusive for the newsletter audience. So, so yeah, but yeah, if you find me on social media, my link tree will be in the bio, and, you know, everything that, you know, Ronin Digital Express newsletter, all that stuff will be right there. So yeah.
Dope. Renton Hawkey, everybody. I appreciate you joining me. This has been excellent. I definitely learned a lot about you and basically the appropriation of digital comics as it is for this day and age.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks for having me on. I really appreciate, you know, guys like you who have your own platform, and your willingness to share it with up and coming creators. You know, I just think that's great, and I just, you know, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity. And yeah, I had a great conversation.
Absolutely, man. So for James Grandmaster Facts Voice, Renton Hawkey, we are out.